Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Show Wizard. I'm going to take a look at Global Company and how to take your mods and put them onto the map, imported through Giant Editor, and then set all the parts up together. There is some information here on the globalcompany.info site. If you come to this particular website, globalcompany.info, there is a documentation section, lots of information in here of what to do and what not to do. As I mentioned in my previous video, it's forbidden to integrate any files of the Global Company. Also includes placeables and mods and maps and whatever else. So all of the scripting to do with Global Company must stay as a separate mod in the mod folder, and then it's loaded in directly from there, not included in your mods or maps. Now, as far as scripts go, every placeable mod that you work with has the global checker, the GC checker script, which I can show you in my particular mod here. Every one of these will have the GC_checker lure. This one, I believe, would be perfectly fine to include in your map. It needs that to actually check that you've got Global Company installed and what version it is and all sorts of different things like that. So I can't see there's any issues there. But as far as the actual structure of the Global Company scripting, the main Global Company mod goes, that must stay in its own separate mod in the mod folder. So there's loads of information about actually setting up map objects, language files, and Global Company XMLs. And this one here actually we'll have a quick look at, but it's not the way I'm going to structure things. You can actually set up an external XML, so you would set up your main XML with all of your stored data and whatever else, and then you'd have a separate XML which would actually control all the animations, inputs, outputs, and various other different things. But for me, I think I'm going to stick with the kind of original setup where everything is all combined in one XML. So if we actually go down to features here, we have this production factory tag. We click on that. It talks a little bit about actually setting up placeable objects and map objects. Gives you some information about how to set up and structure the XML. So for a placeable mod, you would have your stored data with the placeables tag, and then you'd have your stored data and then all the relative information that needs to be put in there for placeables. You also then have a bit of information here, as I mentioned already, about actually setting up a separate XML. So you would set up your first XML with all of your stored data in and everything else. Then you'd have a separate part in that XML which would then link to another XML with all of your animations, inputs, outputs, and all the rest of it in a completely separate XML. That seems to be, for me, too many XMLs. That's too much going on. So I'm actually going to structure it all in one XML, so it will have all of the stored data and all of the information to do with inputs, outputs, animations, all contained in one single XML. But there are advantages to this particular method, I would say, and it's nice to have the feature. Whether you choose to use it or not is entirely up to you, but it's nice to have that feature there. More features, the better. So what I'm also going to look at, or what I'm actually going to be looking at in this particular video, is how to integrate a placeable mod, how to convert the placeable mod into a map-bound object, and then make it a map object, as it says here. Now, I did run into some translation issues on this particular site, and my good friend Papa Bear helped me out with some of that, and also looking through the forums, because there's so much information in the forums on the LS Mod Company site, but it's all in German. And unfortunately, Google Translate tends to fall over sometimes, and it puts words in the wrong places and can make things very confusing. For example, here we have some user attributes that need to be added in to the actual mod in the map. And as you can see here, Google Translate has put this into English, and it's put spaces in places there shouldn't be any. And if you look in here in the XML information, it's added spaces and incorrectly put uppercase letters where they should be lowercase letters. So Google Translate kind of gave me some problems here, and after several hours of trying to get it to work myself, found that most of it was down to Google Translate giving me incorrect information. If you actually switch it back to the original language in German, it does make some differences here, and it does give you correct terminologies in places. But there also was another error which Papa Bear also helped me with. I think that was something he found in the forums. you can correct me if I'm wrong on that in the comments, but this information here for the user attribute XML file name is actually meant to be XML file, not XML file name. But we can have a look at all of that again as we go through this and put it all together in the map. So there is some information here, but there is some problems. Potentially using Google Translate will give you some of those problems and translate things incorrectly. And other than that, I found that this was not quite right as well. So perhaps maybe there's the two combined together, Google Translate and some issues with names of user attributes caused me some problems. But Papa Bear helped me out with all of that, and I managed to get my head around some of the parts and what needs to be set up and sorted out, whatever else. So this is my Placeable mod that I've created, the global company Jenz Wood Crusher. And we can have a look at that in the game when we get to that part. And I've also then got my Felsbrunn sample mod map here. Just call it Woodwork, just for the sake of calling it something. And I've set up an area on the map, as I showed in my previous video, of where all this is going to be placed. And as a placeable, that will go in that area perfectly fine and work no problem once I've purchased the land and then bought it in game, the actual wood crusher, bought it in game and placed it wherever I want to place it in that area of land that I've just purchased, and it will then run and work as any other placeable would do. So we have the ability though to actually add them into the map with the global company system. So, you know, might as well just use it. It's there, so it's been added to the script set. Why not? And I'm then going to hopefully show how to do all of that in this particular video. So what I want to do then is first of all actually create all the parts in my map folder here that need to be set up before I actually import it into the map itself. So I'm going to be creating a few folders here and copying some things from the Placeable version over into those folders. So the first one I'm actually going to create here is a folder called Scripts. Now, there are a few different scripts available now to go into maps. I think most of them are generally built around the Placeable system, but there are a few that can be added into maps. So if you're going to have a heavily scripted map, then I would recommend to actually create a folder called Scripts or Lua or something like that, that you can put them all together. Or perhaps maybe if you're creating things with different XMLs, you might want to call it XML or something like that. Choose a folder name that's going to suit you for your, you know, play style and work style and whatever else. I'm also going to create another folder, and I'm going to call this Store. And this will be for all of the images, because the store image for the Placeable also doubles up as an image for the actual graphical interface when it comes to global company. So we're going to need to have a folder with all of those in it. If I add like 20 different global company mods into the map, then I would want to have a position or a place that I could store all of those images without them being, you know, lost in all of the other stuff as well. So this is the way I would structure it anyway. And then what I'm going to do here is, first of all, I'm going to copy over the GC_checker Lua. This is a global company checker, and it just basically checks to see if the global company mod is in your mod folder and what version it is. I believe that's what it does anyway. So first of all, I'm going to copy this one into my scripts folder. And while I'm in here, I'm also going to copy over the woodcrusher.xml and put that into my scripts folder as well. May as well keep them all together, the scripts and XMLs all in that particular folder. That's fine. And then I'm going to take my store DDS here, and I'm going to actually put that into the store folder that I've created. So we're going to copy that one across as well. We have some translation XMLs, and I'm going to put those into the root folder. Now, I believe as far as the instructions go, they can be in either the root folder or one subfolder. So don't bury them 20 folders in, because the system won't be able to locate them and it won't work properly. I'm just going to be looking with the working with the EN version in this particular run through, but the others will be very similar in the way they're set up. The only difference is obviously they won't be in English. They'll be in whatever language you choose to set them up in. So DE for Germany, FR for French, and so on and so on. And then you'll just obviously need to translate all of the information in there to the relevant languages that they will be set up for. So I've now got that into there, and these language translation XMLs will be for every single mod that you choose to use on the import and integrate into your map. So you won't have to have a separate one for every single mod. it will be incorporated for all of them. So if I have my own seed maker or some seed master or something like that, I would have all of the translations for my wood crusher and all of the translations for the seed master, and then all of the translations for a compost master, and all of the translations for whatever, all in the one XML. So that's really nice to have this single XML that can control all of those translations for each different language. So you'd have one for obviously English, German, and so on and so on. But every mod that you bring into the map will have the translations in just that single XML for each of the different languages. Hopefully that makes sense. But anyway, we'll move on. So we've now got the scripts and we've got the store image. I'm going to rename this because, again, I would want to potentially have all of my imported global company mods. I would have an image for every single one of them for the actual global company interface. So you'd want to name them appropriately for each particular one. So it doesn't necessarily have to be store. For this particular one, I could just rename it Jenz Wood Crusher or something like that. The store is literally, I just named it store because it was originally intended to be a store image because it's based around a Placeable. So for this one, I'm just going to call it Jenz Wood Crusher, and that'll be my image for, as I say, the global company interface in game. And then I would add another one and another one for whatever else I'm going to bring in as I bring them in. And then what we would do is I'm going to go maps, and I'm going to then take the textures, I'm going to drag that over and copy it, and then merge those textures into the textures folder that I've already got. If you haven't got one, then either just create one or drag it over or whatever you need to do to get all of your textures that you're going to include in your map. I'm going to take the particles one and drag that over. This is for my wood chip particles and whatever else for the actual wood chipper or wood crusher. We need to add a couple of lines for the mod desk. So we'll open up the mod desk for the map, and then I'm going to open up the mod desk for the actual Placeable mod. And the only parts we need here are the extra source files for the global company checker and the global company minimum version. So we're going to make a copy of that and put that into the mod desk for the map. Then I'm going to change the file name here to point towards the scripts folder, which is where I've actually located that particular script. We go ahead and save that, close both of those down, done and done. Okay, so next then, let's take the wood crusher i3D. So I'm going to take the i3D and i3D shapes, make a copy of those, come into the maps folder where my map i3D is, and paste those into there like so. I'm pretty sure that's all I need for that part anyway. I would do certain parts at a time, you know, when it comes to your translation XMLs, get one working and then you can continue to work with the following ones from there. Don't try and do everything all at once because it will get really confusing if you're not familiar with XMLs and how things work and whatever else. Just do the bare minimum to start with, get everything working for one set, and then you can start to work with the translation XMLs later on once you know at least the basic stuff is working and you've got one translation XML up and running. But I'm pretty sure that's going to be everything I need out of there. So we'll close that one down. And then what I'm going to do, because I've just literally copied this one over from the other folder, I'm probably going to need to change the actual file names in here, but we'll have a quick look. Textures, textures, textures. No, we do not. Fantastic. So everything's pointing in the right places. So if I open this one up from here, I should have no errors, which we do not. Awesome. So then the next part then would be to actually import it into the map. So if we open up the map in Giants Editor, now I've already imported this once before and positioned it in an appropriate location. As I showed it in the previous video, I've already created this area and put some extra trees and bushes and whatever else. And the easy sheds that I've put in various areas, they are loaded in through the default items XML. So they're still categorized as a Placeable and whatever else. But this will be an imported mod as I say. So what we're going to do here is create a new transform group, and I'm just going to call this GC for global company. So every global company mod that I bring in will go in this transform group, and I'm just going to go File, Import, make sure we're in the right folder here, Wood Crusher, i3D. We'll cut that and paste it into the global company transform group, Control B, and I'm going to just place it over here. What I'm then going to do is open up my text or my notepad here, because I've already got some information laid out what I need to enter. So I'm going to take my readings from here. These are my translate XYZ attributes that I already set it up earlier on exactly where I wanted it. So I'm going to copy all of those, and then I'm going to come back over to here, click in there, left control, left shift and V, and that will then enter all of those in and position it exactly where I want it. And then we need to set up our user attributes. So we have a couple to play with here. Farmland ID, will tie it to the farmland, so we won't be able to use it, or we won't be able to produce anything until we actually own the land. We have an index name. This index name must match what is actually in the XML, and then we have some script callback for the onCreate. This is the actual script that will be run to make it all work, and then we have an XML file which is going to point to our XML file with all of the information to actually run the unit for the animations, inputs, outputs, and all the other triggers. So we can add those in. What I will do is, if I bring up the XML here for the actual Wood Crusher, you can see in here my index name is Wood Crusher. So whatever you've set your index name here must match the user attribute for the index name that we're going to be adding into the map itself. So let's minimize that one down, because we are going to be coming back to that. And we'll just add these in. So the first one is going to be farmland ID. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it, just so I make sure I get it spelt right and everything. So it's farmland, and then capital I and lowercase d, and this needs to be a float. So we're going to add that one into there like so. I'm pretty sure, just want to check, yeah, that needs to be an integer, not a float. I think my information is wrong there, so I'm just going to do that again. Let's paste that in, and we'll make that an integer, and we'll add. And then the next one needs to be index name, so we can take that. I would just take a screenshot or something of this so you can get an idea of what the actual attribute names are and what type they need to be set as, and then you'll need to actually adjust the information for the values to suit whatever you're going to be working with. So we'll take that and we'll add that into there, and this is a string. And then the next one is onCreate. This needs to be a script callback, and then the next one is XML file. And this is where I fell over a little bit, because when I was working through this, I was using the information that was available to me on the site here, and it says here XML file name, and that's wrong. It should be just XML file. So we'll add that one in as a string. Okay, so just so I don't have to type it, I'm going to copy the actual onCreate. So we've got global company, or GC underscore production factory dot onCreate. So I'm going to make a copy of that, and we'll paste that into the onCreate user attribute and tab and lock that in. And then my index name, as I say, is going to match what I've got set in the XML. So this is going to be Wood Crusher. So I'll take it from there and paste that into index name. My XML file is in my scripts folder, so it will be scripts and then the actual Wood Crusher XML. So I just type in there scripts / Wood Crusher.xml. And then when it comes to the farmland, we actually need to identify what the farmland ID for this area is. So we're going to go Window, Train Editing. I'm going to scroll down to Info Layer Paint In, switch over to Farmland, and I'm going to then activate the Train Info Layer Paint mode. As you can see, all of our pretty colours for the farmland are now highlighted. And if I then hover over this area, which is where this farmland is going to be designated, I'm going to go Control R, which will make it white because I've now selected this area. And if I then go into my info channels, because I want to take the value from the layer value here, if I look at the info channels, whichever ones are ticked, just de-tick one and re-tick it again, if de-tick is even a word, but take the tick out and put it back in, basically, and that will change the layer value to what we need to work with. In this case, it's 9. So if I minimize all of this down, go back into here, as you can see, I've already done this, so I've got a layer value here of 9, so I got that right that time. So we'll go back into our user attributes, and then we can just type in here for farmland ID 9, hit tab and lock it in. So we've now got all of our user attributes all set up and everything else. Fantastic. We can go ahead and save the map, and that will now integrate everything into the map, set up with all of our user attributes and everything else. Now I'm not going to do the seasons mask in this particular case, but I would want to paint down some sort of seasons mask around this potentially, so that you know, snow doesn't get into areas that I don't want it to get into and all that sort of it. But it's not overly important in this case. I'm not that bothered, so we'll just leave it as it is for now. That's okay. So we'll go ahead and close that down. Don't need that anymore. Don't need that anymore. And then what we need to do is work with the actual XML that controls everything. And if we look at the information we have here for what we can get out of it, we need to change or remove some information, because if we look here, we've got store data and some placeable information. But because this is now going to be a map object, all of the placeable information is irrelevant, so we can remove it. So we take away all of our store data right the way down to where it's got the first production tag, and we can delete all of that. But then we need to change the placeables tag here to global company. So we're going to take that from there, copy that, come back into here, and I can then overwrite that one there, come down all the way to the bottom, and I can overwrite this one here. So I'm just going to highlight this one because it will highlight the slash as well. So we'll just do like so. I've now got my start and end tag for global company in place. Everything else there, for the most part, can stay the same. Don't need to start messing about with too much in here. When I say that, but there is some changes that will need to be made. Just depends on what you call a lot, I guess. So we can minimize all of that stuff down. And then the next thing we need to look at is our actual translation XMLs. If we come back into here again, we've got our L10N EN XML. At the moment, these ones work perfectly fine as a placeable. My factory name, description, product line, and the actual fill type of logs, which was required because logs are designated as wood chips as a fill type as far as the game is concerned. So I wanted to separate them so it actually had logs as an input and wood chips as an output. So this is required in here. All of these match to what I've got in the actual XML for the unit. So we have our factory name here, and then we have the actual description over here, and then our title for the fill type of logs here, and then the production line down the bottom here. And all of those match in for what we've got in this translations XML. But now that everything is integrated into the map, we also have to add in the name of the map to all of these translations. Because the global company script is in the mod folder, it needs to be able to look at our map and then also look at the actual XML to identify all of the factory names and everything else. But it's going to look at the map first. It's going to find the map name first. And if we don't include that, the translations won't work properly. So what we need to do here then is come back to the actual map name and take a copy of that, and then include that in all of the translations. So we're going to put that into there, and then we also need to include an underscore. So I'm going to take a copy of that so it includes the underscore, so I don't have to type it every time, and we paste that into all of these like so. So now when the global company script from the actual mod folder looks at this, it's going to find my map name and then the actual global company name as well. Like so. So that should be okay there, but we also need to do that in the XML itself for the unit. So we need to come back into here and then change some parts. So we're going to add that onto the beginning of all of these as well. Otherwise the system won't know what we're looking for, because this must match what we've got in our translations XML, and the translations XML requires all of this. So we need to match all of that stuff in. So we're going to put that into there and then do the same with this one as well. And then we can go ahead and save both of those. This one is now done, so we can close that one down. Okay, so then the next couple of parts we have to do very quickly here is our image file name, which for the placeable, I could just use the store image, and that was fine. I'm using the same image, but I've now renamed it, so I need to change the name in here, and obviously now it's in a different position as well, so I also need to got multiple folders of the same thing open again, as I always do. So we also need to change the file name to where it's pointing to, so now it's going to be store, and then it's going to be Jenz Wood Crusher. So I need to basically take all of that there and then overwrite all of this. So what I can do here is just use that and go / and then paste that in. So it's going to be store and then Jenz Wood Crusher. So that should look in the correct folder and the name of the actual image itself. The next thing is also our particle system. So this is now going to be maps and then particle system. So I need to come all the way down to where I've got my file location for my particle systems and change all of those. So I'm just going to add on the beginning of this maps and then / and I can then take that, make a copy of that and paste that into all of those. Now what I could do is just take a copy of the entire line up here and then do a find and replace, but sometimes that can replace things you don't want it to replace, so I'm going to do it this way instead. And then that's pretty much that. So now when I load it all up, it should find those particle systems correctly in the map itself. Fantastic. As far as everything else goes then, I can leave it as it is. So there's not much you have to change, just a few parts, redirecting things in the right places, and changing certain titles of areas for the translations to work now that it's part of the map itself. So we have all of those done, and I'm pretty sure we're getting quite close now to where we need to get it in the map and then test it all out, I guess. There's always a place I find when I get to certain areas when I'm doing this, and the only way you can move forward is to literally just stick it in the map and see if it works. If it doesn't, you need to work through the errors. If it does, fantastic, you move on. So we have our store image, got our scripts and all of those parts located in there. Particle systems, textures, and now what I can do is delete the i3D and i3D shapes for the wood crusher, because that's now integrated into my map, and I've got all of those user attributes all set up. I'm not going to check them again, I think they're okay. We'll just take it on faith that's right. Okay, so what I'm going to do then is, if I go into my games, mods, and then what I'm going to do is put that into there like so. So have the mod folder with the global company script and my map with all of the parts hopefully set up right there. As far as the English translations for all of the information goes, and then once you know that this is all working and you've got no errors and whatever else, you can then come back and do all of the other translations. I mean, obviously if your native language is German, then you would start with the German translations. If you're French, you would more than likely start with the French translations and then do the English and so on later on. But my point is, you start with whichever one you're comfortable with and then get that working first, and then do all of the other ones later on. Make sure you get one part working. Don't try and do it all at once, because it will get very confusing, in my opinion. So what we're going to do then is go into game and we'll check it out, make sure it all works. Okay, so into game then, and we can tell straight away if everything's working. Left Control and G, and everything shows up in here. We should have a good idea that it's all doing its job. And we also have this button here that we can click, and that will give us a list of potential errors that it's found with XMLs and things like that haven't been loaded in correctly. But as far as this goes, it looks like we've got the right version. The global company system is running. We've got the mod in the mod folder, and we've loaded in 3 mod language XML files because I've got my Jenz Wood Crusher and the Seed Maker in the mod folder as well. It's loaded those in, and the one that's in the map. So we've ended up with 3, but that's perfectly fine. You can change your different settings for what is included with the global company system here if you want to. But this is the part that we're interested in. And as you can see here, the different colors of text. So the Seed Maker, because that's loaded in through the default items XML, it's in white, which is classed as a placeable object. But my Jenz Wood Crusher, because I've integrated that into the map, it's in blue, which is now designated as a farmland object. So we can click on this, go into the overview. Our description is correct. It's all in the right language, for me at least, and it displays correctly and whatever else. And all of the text here, Jenz Wood Crusher, we can click on this, Jenz Wood Crusher, and we have our logs, which is obviously wood chips, because that's the field type that is designated by the game, and then our output of wood chips and everything else. We can click on this and purchase some wood chips, which would be basically faking our, or emulating, I should say, that we've put logs into the unit. Now, one thing I did find with Global Company, because I don't own the land in that area at the moment, if I go into the map here, this is where the setup that I've put together, and my wood crusher will be here. If I go X, you can see I don't own that farmland. I need to purchase it. And one thing I did find with the Global Company system is if you go into the Global Company menu here and then go into your actual unit through this menu, you can actually purchase. It will allow you to fill the unit up through this particular menu, even though you don't own the land. And the wood crusher will kick into gear and whatever else, make lots of noise. What it will not do, until you purchase the land, it will not produce an output. So you can come into here and you can actually add in all your parts and whatever else, and I can do exactly the same if I go up to here and come over to the unit. You can see it all shows up and everything, whatever. I can press R and then go into the unit and again add in the wood chips, emulating that I've put logs in there and whatever else. But what it will not do is it will not give me an output until I actually buy the land. So that's what we're going to do here. I don't own the land, as I've shown you there, so I will obviously need to purchase it and whatever else, which we'll do later on. So if I press R and I go to the overview, I can look at the camera and do all of this sort of stuff. I don't own the land still, but I can do all of this. So I go back into, go back into here. I click on my input and I'm going to add it in. So if I just do the full amount here, what I will do is while I'm in here, I'm just going to cheat in some money. So we'll just cheat in a fair whack. That'll do. There we go. 50 mil. I'm going to cheat in the full amount here. So if I do, what have I got? I'll go down, up. I think this takes 100,000. Yeah, 100,000. Yeah, it's right there in front of me. We'll go up to 100,000. Fill it right up. It's fine. There we go. I press space. It's going to tell me that I need to pay for it. That's fine. 160,000 to buy 100,000. Sorry, a million litres. No, 100,000. 160,000 pound to buy, or euros or whatever that is, to buy that amount of litres. Yes, and it's now in the unit. Fantastic. If I do this, you will see that it gives you an error because I don't own the land and I've put in I've put in the wood chips there. It will then throw up an error because it's not it's got a bit of a air going on because it thinks that it should be doing something, but because I don't own the land, it can't actually do its operation. So what I'm going to do here is this, and there we go. So it does actually work. It is doing, you know, its animations, and all the particle systems are doing whatever they need to do and everything else. But if I actually speed up time here, you can see on the window there I have 100,000 on the digital display, 100,000 litres in there, and you can see that in the actual display here, as well as in this display here, whichever one you want to look at. We go through it all, showing that the actual logs, the input is all full up and everything else. But if I then speed up time, this will be my output. I can speed up time as much as I want and nothing will happen. I'm not getting any kind of output whatsoever. So I'm not sure if that's a bug or whether that's something that's intended. You can actually put logs into the unit, but until you buy the land, it just won't produce them. It just won't produce anything. I'm not going to cut a tree down in this particular case, but because it'll take too long. But I'm not quite sure how that works, in all honesty. I don't know if it's a bug in the system, or if it's intentionally set up that way. Potentially, I guess you could cut down some trees because this is obviously a wood chipper or wood crusher. The same would work if it was a seed master or something like that. You could fill it up with all the different products. You just wouldn't actually be able to produce seeds until you purchase the land. I'm not entirely sure on that. I don't know how that is scripted and how that is meant to work. But you can clearly see there's product in there, but I'm not producing anything. Now what I will do is go in and buy the land. So if I come in here, X, and then click on the land and purchase the land. Whoops. Still got 100,000 litres in here. But now you can see I'm creating an output instantly. I'm creating an output. And if I speed up time, you can see it goes up quite rapidly. So yeah, I don't know on that. I'm not sure, like I say, if that is a potential bug or whether it's meant to work that way. So you need to bear that in mind. And you will get this error here that's saying can't change money of spectator farm and a lure stack and whatever else. If you cheat in, well, it's not cheating in because you actually you are actually buying it. But if you actually add the input through this system on a mod that's imported into the map and set up on land that you don't own, then you will get that error and things will start to do weirdness. So I just wanted to show you that. Be a bit careful with that. But otherwise, once you've bought the land, it will then start to produce. So I guess if you have some spare whatever and you want to get, you know, preempt the situation a little bit, you could fill the unit up, and then once you have the money to buy the land, you'll be ready to go and produce the output instantly. You won't have to fill it up because you will have already done it at an earlier stage. I don't know, whatever your play style is, but that is something that is part of the scripting. It will allow you to do that. So yeah, I don't know. If I'm going to go through the effort of putting this on the map and doing whatever else, I'm not going to pay £160,000 or dollars or euros to fill it up. I'm going to cut a tree down and put it in there and get my wood chips for free in that sense. So yeah, again, that comes back to however you want to, you know, your play style and whatever else. But I think I've shown, you know, how to get it working and do whatever is required to get it working in a map. So this would be there right at the start of a new game save. You wouldn't need to purchase it and place it. It will be there right off the get-go. The only thing you will need to do is buy the land, but you will need to do that anyway. Even if it's a placeable, you still need to own the land before you can actually put it on the land, you know, as a placeable. So whichever way you look at it, load it in through the default items XML or load it into the map, you know, import it in, set up your user attributes and all your parts to do your XML and whatever else. Yeah, I've shown you a couple of different ways there. Hopefully what I've shown helps you out and gives you choices and options, and you can sort of go whichever way you want to go, I guess. Yeah, I'm Wizard. Thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one.